Keep your eyes on the footage. It's grainy, silent, and in black and white, the kind captured by the most primitive surveillance camera in the basement of St. Mark's Roman Catholic Church. It shows a young girl entering the side door shortly after 2:50 p.m., her silhouette barely taller than the heavy wooden beam she passes under. Her name was Carol Dougherty, 9 years old, a fourth grader, a beloved daughter, and in less than an hour, she would be gone. That fleeting image, Carol stepping into a place she trusted completely, would become one of the final known glimpses of her life. If you're here, you know the truth is often darker than fiction. Subscribe now and never miss a case. This is a story of loss, courage, and justice. Take a moment, brace yourself, and let's dive in. Every detail we uncover brings us closer to the truth. Stay focused, stay with me, and let the facts speak for themselves. If this is your first time hearing a case like this, I'm glad you chose to listen. Hit the subscribe button and stay updated for more gripping cases. Let's begin. October 22nd, 1962 was crisp and bright in Bristol Borough, the kind of day when fallen leaves skittered playfully across sidewalks. Carol was walking a familiar path. From her family's home, past the corner candy store, toward the town library to return a book her teacher had assigned. She was a creature of gentle routines. She prayed every night. She liked strawberry ice cream. Her room was decorated with paper dolls and a small collection of toy horses. And sometimes, not every day, just sometimes, she would stop at St. Mark's on her way home. To sit, to pray, to think. Nobody worried about that. Not in 1962. Not in a church. At 3:05 p.m., she stepped inside. She would never walk back out. By dusk, the sun had lowered into a wash of gold through Bristol's old brick streets. Carol still wasn't home. Her father, Patrick Dougherty, a quiet, sturdy man who worked with his hands his whole life, set off to retrace his daughter's route. He checked the library. He checked the crossing near the school. Then, with increasing dread, he pushed open the doors of St. Mark's. Inside, the church was silent except for the hum of distant traffic and the faint odor of recently extinguished candles. Patrick called his daughter's name, his voice swallowed instantly by the enormous space. A few minutes later, a sound shattered the silence. A father's scream, echoing from the choir loft. That is where he found her. Carol was lying on the floor of the loft, her small frame unnaturally still. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The sanctuary that should have protected her had instead become her tomb. When detectives arrived, they were confronted with a paradox. A brutal killing, inside a public building, in broad daylight, with almost no physical evidence. There was no forced entry, no sign of a struggle, no footprints on the stairs to the loft. Nothing stolen. Only two pieces of physical evidence stood out. A single pubic hair clenched tightly in Carol's right hand. Smudged fingerprints on a nearby railing, too partial to match. The hair became the center of the case. But forensic science in 1962 was primitive. The best they could do was say it did not match Carol, and the investigation spiraled outward. Police interviewed priests, choir members, janitors, parish volunteers, random passers-by. Some leads fizzled within hours. Some were false confessions. Some suspects had airtight alibis. And one man, William Schrader, a local with a reputation for violence, failed a polygraph. But even that wasn't enough. There was no DNA testing. No surveillance footage beyond the one unhelpful church camera. No neighbor had seen anything unusual. The case stalled almost immediately. It would remain frozen, untouched, but never forgotten, for the next 63 years. Carol's funeral drew almost the entire town. Newspaper front pages showed her school portrait, her shy smile beneath neatly curled bangs. Her mother stopped going to the grocery store, unable to bear the condolences whispered in every aisle. Her father kept her room intact, bed still made, library books still on the desk. Halloween decorations came down early that year. The town's children were suddenly driven everywhere, even short distances. Doors that had never been locked were bolted shut. Something had broken in Bristol Borough, and nothing the police did could fix it. For decades the file sat in the basement of the Bucks County Courthouse. A box filled with brittle newspaper clippings, a faded police sketch, and a small envelope containing the hair. Every few years, a new detective tried to revive the investigation. They all hit the same dead ends. Then the box was closed again. Time marched forward. The world changed. The science changed. But Carolyn didn't. She remained frozen in 1962, a child waiting for justice. It began with a routine cold case audit. A young district attorney's investigator opened Carolyn's file and paused at the envelope containing the pubic hair. He contacted a private lab specializing in degraded DNA. For the first time since the Kennedy administration, the case moved. The hair still held nuclear DNA, just enough. A genealogical profile was created. Dozens of potential relatives emerged. And one name rose to the top: William Schrader, the man who had failed the polygraph, the man who had lived near the church, the man who had fled the state shortly after the murder, and the man who had died in 2002. But DNA wasn't the only revelation. A witness, Schrader's grown stepson, came forward after seeing a news report. He revealed that Schrader had confessed to him decades earlier. "I lured the girl into the church. I had to kill her so she wouldn't talk." The stepson had been young, frightened, powerless, and until now, nobody had ever asked. The grand jury reviewed the evidence. The DNA, the confession, the polygraph, the lies, the timeline. It all converged. After 63 years, the conclusion was unavoidable. William Schrader raped and murdered 9-year-old Carol and Dougherty. The announcement came on a bright morning in early 2025. Reporters gathered around the courthouse steps. Detectives who had inherited the case from long-retired predecessors stood solemnly nearby. The district attorney stepped to the podium and spoke the words the Dougherty family had waited a lifetime to hear. "We can now say with certainty who took Carol Ann's life." Carol Ann's surviving siblings wept quietly. Her father and mother were long gone, but their children felt the weight lift, a weight they had carried since childhood. There would never be a trial. Schrader would never face a jury. But the truth, finally, had arrived. Justice, though delayed for more than half a century, had at last found its way home. Inside St. Mark's Church, the choir loft is still there. Dusty wood, faded hymnals, a shaft of light through a stained glass window. Nothing marks the spot where Carol Ann died. But her story lingers in the rafters, in the quiet, in the town's memory. Her case became one of the longest unsolved child murders in Pennsylvania's history, a reminder of how fragile justice can be, and how relentless the truth is once someone decides to pursue it. In the end, it wasn't technology alone that solved the case. It was persistence. It was courage. It was a child who refused to be forgotten.